Year exactly since California voters approved Prop 47.
Okay, so the measure made some low-level felony turned into misdemeanors in an effort to reform the criminal justice system and in order to reduce the population of our jail. So far, more than 12,000 petitions from convicted felons seeking lower charges have been processed. Prosecutors have granted 57% of those petitions. That's more than 7,000 inmates or former inmates who have had their records amended and then released into the street.
And there are 23,746 local petitions still pending, and that number is growing. District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis is joining us with, this sounds like an overwhelming number, a lot of paperwork.
It's a lot. They made it retroactive, so we had to go back. First, we looked at those people in prison, because if they had their cases reduced, some of them could get out of prison. So we want to make sure that happened. And then after we did those, we went to jail and did the ones where they were in jail and could get released as well. But as you can see, 57% of those that were filed were granted. So not every single petition was really eligible for the relief. And even those that were eligible for relief had other felonies too, so a lot of those people didn't get out of prison or out of jail because they had other felonies.
So for people who are watching right now saying, wait a minute, Bonnie, what do you mean people are getting let out of prison? If they, have not kind of paid attention to Prop 47, tell people at home what types of offenses would be eligible for release.
Good point. So any possession of any drug would be reduced to a misdemeanor.
You're talking cocaine, meth, anything.
Meth, ecstasy, anything like that.
Okay.
And then anything under basically $950 property crimes is now a misdemeanor. So if you were in custody or in jail or even had a pending case that had a theft-related offense that was underneath $950, it was changed from a felony to a misdemeanor. And if you were in jail, a lot of times, because a misdemeanor, the most time you can do is a year in custody, then you were released from custody. So we had to go through each of the petitions that were filed, look to see if they actually were eligible, and they would be eligible unless they had, if they were a sex offender, they wouldn't be eligible. If they were a danger, they wouldn't be eligible. But we had to look at not just that particular crime, but what else they were in prison for, because a lot of times they're in prison for multiple cases.
So it's been a year now. How many of those people that have had their sentences reduced and been released from prison are actually back in jail?
Well, 22% have been rearrested for new offenses. And, the problem is, as we've talked about before, when something a misdemeanor, what that means is for the theft-related offenses, it's a citation. They don't even arrest you. It's a ticket. That's right. And for the drugs, they book you and release you. So there is no probation, no parole, no monitoring, and no resources whatsoever for treatment. So you take somebody who's an addict and you put them on the street again without giving them any of the help that they need. They have nothing to do other than to recidivate for the most part, because they're not getting the help that they need. They don't have jobs, they don't have homes, they don't, all of those things.
Now, I remember initially, obviously you were against this measure initially, but I remember when the discussions about Prop 47 were going around that we were, some were saying that this is going to help reduce the jail population, then in turn, free up our jails for, higher level criminals, this and that. Has it helped in any way?
Yes, it has. The jail population has gone down tremendously. So in that respect, I think it certainly has been effective. Most of the people coming back don't go to prison anymore. They go to local jail.
But then does that ramp up the local jail or county jail population?
It does ramp up the jail for a certain extent. But I think what we all in law enforcement are grappling with is how can we help with pre-diversion programs, those kinds of things that can keep them even out of the system, because there are some good reasons for this. If you put somebody that's a low-level offender in with people that are real criminals, they come out better criminals as opposed to rehabilitated. Right. So we want to free up room so that those people that are sex offenders, those people that are violent, those people that shoot at police officers, we want to lock them up. We want to have a place for them. For the low-level ones, we want to have treatment, though, available for them, mental health available for them, those kinds of things. So there are things that we're all working on to try and make it work because it is the law and we want to protect our communities.
But speaking of people who shoot at police officers, we saw that incident yesterday. What was the case there? What was his background? Why did he kind of fall through the cracks back on the streets?
Well, he certainly had a background, but because it's a pending case, I can't really talk about it. But this is what law enforcement is faced with right now, is a lot of people that have records that would rather shoot it out as opposed to go back to prison, you know, those kinds of things. And so it's, you know, it's a dangerous time for law enforcement.
Is there a way, I know we were talking about having these programs for these low-level offenders who are released under the law. I mean, like you said, it's a law. There's no other way around it. So is there a way in which to make these program dollars available for these people, to have these transitional programs to get them out of the system, the justice system, and into civilian life, a productive civilian life?
That's exactly what we're focused on right now. There is some money available for grants. We're working on that right now to get it out into the community. We're also looking for other areas to get money to the community. And, you know, soon there'll be maybe some money available from the proposition in 2016. But
I was going to say, Bunny, wasn't there money set aside in this proposition for that specific reason? Where in the world is that money?
It wasn't due to even be looked at until 2016, so it's been a year without it. But even in 2016, it's not going to have the kind of money that I think people thought it was going to have.
Require, right?
Right. But, you know, the president's been talking about prison reform now, and he's talked about the need to get dollars to treatment, the need to really address the issues that bring these people into the criminal justice system, like housing, like jobs, like mental health, like substance abuse. We've got to deal with those, and our office has been on the forefront on a lot of these programs. We had the first reentry program in 2006 that was saved money and got people clean and sober. I just attended a drug court graduation. Right. There's nothing like that. If you haven't been to one, you need to go to one because it really is nice.
How do you compel people who are just getting a ticket, who just have a misdemeanor, to show up for anything when they're felons and they have to go, they have a probation up, they have accountability? There's no accountability here. How do you force people to, even if you have all the money in the world, how do you get them to go?
That certainly is part of the issue. Misdemeanors do have some jail time attached, but it's difficult to get them to the table. But, you know, at some point, some of them decide that, you know, they've bottomed out and it's time to turn things around. And we get, you know, alumni from these other programs to help as well. So I'm more than willing to work with people to try and turn their lives around, because it really does. Rehabilitation with accountability really does work, and that's what we're aiming to do.
So what is the next step here, Bonnie? Just to get more money, to get what we were promised with Prop 47.
Exactly.
What's the next thing?
The next step, I'm reaching out to people that have supported this with a lot of money to see if I can get them to help in this area. So I'm looking for, our office is looking for money, as well as other agencies are looking for money, bringing the stakeholders together to try and find ways that we can work together to make sure people get the services that they need. But we still have, by the way, about 22,000 plus petitions.
23, yeah.
It's a little bit of work.
It's a little bit, but there will be more.
A lot of work,
by the way, we have about 7 people that are working on this, aside from what else they do.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Isn't that a huge strain on the office as well, and more money going out for that as well?
It is a strain, but, you know, it is. And we're trying to comply with the law, especially if somebody's in custody. We want to get them out as soon as possible.
Have we seen a spike? Is there a correlation between what's happening with this program and crime?
There is a slight spike. I don't know that we can yet draw the conclusion, although when you have 30 years of no spike in crime, and now you have a spike in crime, it begs the question, but not as much as one might have expected. So I think that part of it has to do with some people aren't getting arrested anymore because it's a lot of work to arrest somebody for a possession of a drug case where they're just going to get booked and released and
on a misdemeanor charge.
On a misdemeanor, right.
All right, Bonnie, thank you so much for giving us the status update. Hopefully, you know, we will get what we were promised with Prop 47.